chess tournament. Be part of it.
Good afternoon, chess fans, and welcome to 2016 Tata.
Take three.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the 2016 Tata Steel Chess Tournament. We're getting off to a little rocky start here for round 12. I'll be your host throughout today's activities, Chess Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan. Not too sure who's going to be joining us in the booth. At the start of the round, the stage has been very full of a lot of visiting dignitaries. The final weekend here in Tata, at the Tata Steel, is so very popular. A lot of people, organizers from all over the world have arrived. I've seen organizers from Bilbao, Norway, Moscow, and many other places. As we get started for the round, let's just pull up our standings. World champion Magnus Carlsen has put his imprint on the tournament. He by no means is the event wrapped up for the world champion. He does have a 1-point lead over Fabiano Caruana, and today Magnus plays a very important round game. It's actually quite an extraordinary thing. If Wesley was to upset Magnus today, the remarkable thing, and if Ding Liren was to do well in his game today, the last round would be for first prize, as Ding Liren and Magnus Carlsen are slated to play each other in the championship round. In any case, today Magnus leads with a 1-point lead over Fabiano Caruana. Fabi has 7. Dingleren in clear third place with a +2 score of 6.5 points. Anish Giri, Wesley So, Pavel Elyanov all have 6 from 11. Wei Yi and Shak Mamidarov at 5.5. David Navarra, Sergei Karyakin at 5. Luke Van Velde at 4.5. Hu Yifan, Evgeny Tomaszewski, and Mickey Adams share the last place. And the pairings are Sergei Karyakin versus Anish Giri, Hu Yifan, Mickey Adams, Wesley So, Magnus Carlsen. A crucial game, as is the one right there, Ding Liren, Pavel Elyanov, David Navarra, Evgeny Tomaszewski, and also another very crucial game for the podium prizes, Fabiano Caruana versus Luke Van Velde, and finally Wei Yi versus Shakhriyar Mamidarov. Well, let's get right into it as we'll follow what I expect will be the key game of the round between Wesley So and Magnus Carlsen. Wesley has the white pieces, opened with the English, and the players have been playing very quickly indeed all of their moves. So let's see how it starts. C4, C5, symmetrical English. I have a lot of experience, I might say, with this line is both white and black. E7, E6, G2, G3, the most popular, and if you go back into the 80s and 90s, this line of play, which very often times led to hedgehog, was really the most fashionable line or defense for black at that time. B6, bishop G2, bishop B7, castles, bishop E7, rook E1. So in the modern life, this move, rook E1, has really taken precedent over, D2, D4. So white essentially wants to play the move E2, E4, and only then follow up with D4. There's a very long and complex line that begins with D4 takes, queen takes D4, D6. Lots and lots of games were played like this in the olden days, let's put it like that. And I remember analyzing these variations at quite some length. This is what we all used to do as both white and black, and kind of getting a hedgehog ending. There was also a at the time a kind of a line of thought where white would take with the knight on D4, force the trade of bishops, and we get a position. I'm going to put a position like this on the board, and white used to try to bring his queen to F3 to control this diagonal. A lot of games where white would oftentimes put the pawn on E3 and only later play G4 and G5. I remember a lot of games of the Romanian Grandmaster Florin Gheorghiu. But rook E1, like I said, has become the main fashionable move, and D7, D5. If black was intent on playing a hedgehog, he could do it in this fashion, like this, although, wait a minute, I have to be careful that I don't fall for a trick with E5 with a sudden discovered against the bishop. So hold on, I've done it wrong. Let me do it right this time. Let me play a proper move order, A6, D4 takes, knight takes, queen C7 to get the old hedgehog. And again, there were so many games in the hedgehog in the 80s and 90s. It was almost like the Berlin of the day. None of this actually happened. After rook E1, Magnus didn't want to give up the space that playing the hedgehog does. He went for the modern line with d5 knight takes. Now we see the point of White's move e4. Magnus didn't want to go into this type of a structure. Knight takes c3, b takes c3, castles d4. And although there have been numerous games, White tends to be a little bit better thanks to his central pawn duo. Instead, Magnus played knight b4. Very importantly, White cannot allow Black to put his knight on d3, hence the move d4. All of these moves are, according to my understanding, theory. And let me just say, in their individual matchups, Magnus Carlsen and Wesley So have played 4 times, remarkably all last year. Magnus won in the Singfield Cup of 2015, and all the other games have been drawn. So a +1+ score for world champion Magnus Carlsen. After knight c6, knight takes c6, queen takes d1, all of these moves very quickly played. Rook takes d1 and bishop takes c6. So all of this is still well-known theory, and according to our database, there are 50 games from this precise position played by top players. So we're going to leave this game alone as the players are still in theory and take a stroll around stage and take a look at our number 2 player in the event, or who's currently second, Fabiano Caruana. Today, Fabi is playing the white side of a Najdorf against Luc Van Velle. Luc, of course, is the lowest rated player in the tournament, but that doesn't mean he hasn't brought a lot of excitement to this event. The Dutch fans are still in a tizzy about the missed opportunity that Luc had against the world champion Magnus Carlsen. Magnus sacrificed a piece, and Luc had an opportunity to win that game. Yesterday, an incredible game between Luc and David Navarra. Luc played what appeared to be an awful game, but then made up for it with a queen sacrifice for 2 minor pieces, which ended in an extraordinary draw. And today Luc is playing his favorite Najdorf variation. Let's see how we get to this open Sicilian. Fabi started with e4, and of course Luc is very happy to accept the challenge of the Najdorf. What to say? A position, as John Grief, former U.S. champion John Grief would say, a position pregnant with possibilities. Just about every move from this position, with the exception of maybe a silly move like bishop d2, has been played at this stage. Just a large variety of moves. Bobby Fischer's favorite, bishop c4. That has been analyzed to death. Basically, just about everything has been analyzed to death. There's the positional play a4, g3, h3, and the choice that Fabi played was f3. He's hoping to get the so-called English attack with an early g4. f3, e6, also a very important moment here also for Black is the move e5. e6 was Luc's choice, bishop e3, and we have the English attack, b5, queen d2, knight bd7. The players have all played these moves very quickly, I must say. g4, menacing g5 to try to chase away this well-placed knight on f6. We have h6, castles, bishop b7, h4. All of these moves are well known to theory buffs, and I must say it's a very, very sharp position with a lot of theory. For White in an ideal world would like to play a move like let's play a move for black. Rook c8, not the only move. There's also knight e5 is an important alternative. I've seen a lot of games where what white tries to do is with this move bishop h3. He can't play g5 right away, of course, because after h takes g5, the highly desirable recapture h takes g5 is a pin. So with the move bishop h3, what white is trying to do is something, a twofold idea. First of all, he does very much want to play g5, recapture with the pawn on g5, boot this knight on e6, and then after having played g5, to then play bishop takes e6, sacrificing a piece. From black's point of view, black often wants to play knight e5 and knight c4 to disrupt this plan. So after h4, I believe the most theoretical move for black is knight e5. Again, just keeping an eye on this bishop to make sure it doesn't go to h3, because this knight could also go to c4. And then if you have something like rook g1, different way of getting in. Again, this is like a long theoretical battle, and you really have to study the games of Boris Gelfand and Veselin Topalov and many other great players who enjoy playing some really sharp theoretical stuff. All right. By the way, in their individual matchups, Fabi and Van Welly have 2 wins each, so and 5 draws. All of their games have been played here in the Wijk aan Zee tournament, or in Amsterdam. Okay, so that's a big theoretical battle brewing between Fabi and Luc Van Welly. Another game to take along. Let me check out the game between Sergei Karyakin and Anish Giri. Anish has been a man who he seems to have more lives than a cat. He's had some very bad games, and yesterday I had breakfast this morning with Mickey, and we talked a little bit briefly about his game against Anish. And Mickey had a hard time explaining his errors in that game, because he really felt, and he was correctly so, that he really let a win slip away as he had Anish dead to the wall. Today, Sergei Karyakin really, he just, the World Cup champion just really has not gotten into stride in this event. It's a very long event, some ups and downs for Sergei, more downs than ups, as these two players prepare themselves to play in the candidates tournament in Moscow in just a brief 2 months' time. Sergei opened up with Juan b3. When I see both the moves b3 as well as g3, I realize, of course, that what it means is a frustration. A frustration for the first player that in a lot of the mainline defenses of their opponents, they simply haven't been able to come up with a good plan or bright novelty of which that they have a sufficient confidence that they're going to get a playable position or even an advantage. You might also say, okay, Sergei doesn't want to reveal his preparation, but I think that's going a little bit too far. I think the move b3, very reasonable move, is just one of those moves that says, I just don't know what to do against your mainline Grunfeld or whatever it is, your mainline defense. In their individual matchups, what's really remarkable is that the two players have played each other 8 times, and Sergei has won 4 of those and 4 draws. Gary has never defeated Sergei. For such a extraordinary player as Anish, and who's so very solid, I might just go so far as to say that Sergei probably has the best record against Anish of any player in the world. So not an easy opponent for Anish. b3. d5, bishop b2, bishop g4. Actually, this specific move order I like to play as black. The idea is very, very simple. That black wants to make it as difficult for white as possible to get in the move knight f3, because black will simply capture that knight and force the doubling of the pawn. So, for example, knight f3, bishop takes. Let's take capture towards the center. Knight f6. Let's play a move like e3, g6, and then when the bishop comes to g7, neutralizing the dark square diagonal, white's going to have some regrets that he has double pawns in the position, which is why we see the move g3 by Sergei. e6, bishop g2, knight f6, h3, knight f3. So it's not exactly a London system. This light square bishop didn't come to the square f5. It is outside the pawn structure over here. The reason why I think that this move order b3, Larsen's opening, queenside fianchetto, is not that effective is because with white's opening move order, black has not been obliged to play the move c7, c6, and can, in some occasions, simply play c7, c5, gaining some space. In any case, it's a very solid position. After d3, bishop d6, knight b d2, castles. So from white's perspective, if he's going to get anything in terms of an opening edge, it's going to be associated with the push e2, e4. And that is what Sergei is considering, whether he needs to play e2, e4 immediately or to play castles. By the way, I'm very happy to take any questions from our audience. There's a hashtag Tata Steel Chess for your Twitter questions, and I'll read them on the air if we have some good ones. All right, we'll continue our stroll around the stage, and let's go to the game of Ding Liren and Pavel Elyanov. Both these players have had some adventures here in Wijk aan Zee, and I'm sure an argument can be made for both of them that they both deserve more points or fewer points, depending on which part of the argument you think is most deserved. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, Queen's Indian. It's been a very popular defense in this edition of this Tata Steel. It's always been a popular defense. It's just that I've been seeing so many Catalans as well as Ragozins with bishop b4 these days. But the Queen's Indian, a classic defense. g3, bishop b4, bishop e7, all very well-known stuff. Queen b3. Okay, that's a little bit of a different wrinkle for sure. Queen b3. All right, well, there's so many variations where black is interested in capturing this pawn and maintaining the pawn. With b6, b5, we move queen b3, simply defending the pawn on c4, has a logic. I'm just not so sure the queen on b3 is the best placed square for the queen. Let's see how Pavel handled this move. Castles, rook d1, knight b7, rook c1, rook c8, all very standard stuff from black side, I must say, as black is preparing the move c6, c5, and then after wholesale trades in the center where the c4 pawn, the c pawns and d pawns get traded off, black has equalized, and now the move knight e1. Well, I can definitely understand that what the move white wants to do is to stop c5. Let me just see if this is indeed stopped. After knight e1, c5, takes, takes, takes with a discovered attack against bishop and knight. I'm thinking knight c5, and this would be an interesting piece sacrifice for white. What does he get? He just gets a pawn or two. This looks insufficient to me, so I'm wondering, does the move knight e1 actually prevent black from playing c5 or not? Well, that's a very key question, of course, for the entire position. Knight e1, c5. Black would relish the opportunity to meet d4 takes c5, as after knight takes c5, he gets to recapture a pawn with a tempo, and this knight on e1 looks kind of silly. So let me see this again. C takes, pawn takes. Aha, d6. There you go. Very typical move, tactical move in Catalans as well as Queen's Indians. Thanks to the move d6, two bishops are being simultaneously attacked. Takes, takes, takes. And this looks a little bit more reasonable for white. He might be able to make some kind of argument that he's a little bit better. It's still a very stodgy affair, to be sure. So while the move c5 isn't stopped, there is a potential that white might be able to squeeze out a little something. From black's perspective, he should not wait too long with his freeing break c6, c5. One of the benefits of the move knight e1, if I can speak about it in those terms, is that white now controls the e4 square with both bishop as well as knight on c3, so that white is preparing the central advance e2, e4, thanks to the knight moving back to e1. So, okay, I'm sure that we're still in some theory. Let's continue to look at some of our other matchups of the round. After a very solid start, I want to say, Wei Yi had been undefeated, and then he suddenly ran into trouble in the second half of the tournament. Today, Wei Yi, the Chinese phenom, he is playing against Shak Mamidarov. And let's see what they have done. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4. So fortunately, no Berlin defense, and we have a Morphy classical Spanish. In a moment, I'll get to how these two players have matched up. I can't imagine they've played too many times because Wei Yi is simply so young. Knight f6, bishop e7, rook e1, b5, all very standard stuff. My goodness. A Breyer defense. Yay, I actually know something about this line. d4, knight b8 to d7, c4. Yeah, this is a move that they used to play in the old days, where essentially when white goes for his usual play with knight bd2 and bishop c2, and the knight swings itself around to g3, and black plays bishop b7 and rook e8 and bishop f8. Those lines Shak has played in depth. I mean, the variations go for a long way. And c4 is a way of getting getting out of those variations, those long, lengthy mainline stuff, and to take the game into a different road. In their individual matchups, they actually played in 2013 in the Tromsø World Cup. That, of course, is the 128-player knockout event. And Mammy won the match by a score of 1.5 in rapid chess. So 2 draws in classical chess, and Shaq managed to win the match in rapid. So this is their 3rd classical game. c4, c6, all of this stuff is really well known. Knight c3 and a very quick b4. b4. I want to say I'm more familiar with the line where black is playing bishop b7 and looking for opportunity to capture on c4 and to break out with d6, d5. So b4, well, an early committal move, I must say. Whoa, knight e2. Okay, knight e2. Okay, so definitely the latest and greatest in theory, because I can understand that Wei Yi was probably a little bit anxious and worried that had he put his knight on the a4 square, it's kind of out of the game. And maybe for argument's sake, after a move, let's say just a5 and queen to c7, this knight on a4 has maybe a hard time getting into the game. But knight e2, knight takes e4, and suddenly the position has become a very, very different one from our normal Spanish tortures. Queen c2. Well, again, I'm sure the players are playing some very highly charged theoretical stuff. I kind of find it hard to believe, personally, that white can simply give up his e4 pawn and hope to get an advantage. Wow. I'm being told that to sacrifice his e4 pawn, Wei Yi did not spend a lot of time. And in fact, as we can see from the clocks, Wei Yi has gained 3 extra minutes, and the normally fast-moving Shaq Mamidarov is the one spending time in this game, almost 30-odd minutes, in fact. So knight takes e4, queen c2, f5. Okay, f5 looks like a particularly combative move, if you were to ask me. I'm really not sure why Shaq simply didn't retreat his knight. I mean, with the very straightforward idea of playing e4 as well as d5, holding on to his extra pawn. I can imagine takes. Why this should be good for white, I don't know. All I can say is white has played very, very quickly, and I guess he's prepared this position. But I must say I'm a little bit confused as to what black's actual problem is at the moment. Let's see what he did play. He did play, pardon me, knight f5, maintaining his knight in the center of the board, challenging Wei Yi to show what he's doing. c5, discover check, makes sense. d5, blocking the threat. And now bishop to e3. Wow. Bishop e3. Well, this is some deep preparation, folks. I'm beginning to appreciate it a little bit. I just boldly point out one obvious point is that the move f4 you don't want to play because the knight on e4 is only protected once by the pawn, and that pawn is pinned. So f4 would mean the loss or the return of a pawn for white. Oops, and also cancel. And also there is the idea of bishop takes d5 check as well in the position. So no f4, but if you capture here on d4, then I can well imagine that there's some play here after knight takes. First of all, once more, this knight requires a lot of protection. The c6, pawn, e6, and f5 are all hanging. Knight takes f5, rook takes f5, queen takes e4. So black doesn't want to help his opponent develop his pieces with the move e5 takes d4. Perhaps a move like bishop f6. Takes, knight d4. Well, I just find the position highly confusing to begin with, and it may work out if black's pieces are misplaced, that with knights on d4 and f4 looking at the e6, c6, f5, and with the pawn coming to f3 booting out this great knight on e4, white may get some nice initiative, but I'm having a hard time believing that this line really does work for white and that it's good enough for advantage. Maybe it is. It's just some great preparation, perhaps, by Wei Yi, as he's played the variation very quickly, and we'll see if Shaq manages to find a solution. Just looking at the webcam, I believe I've seen the move King H8 by Shaq, just getting off this A2 diagonal so that those variations that we saw where the queen was capturing the knight on e4 are no longer possible. And I'm sure black would very much like white to capture on e5 so that he could get his pieces sorted out with knight d7 takes c5. So maybe that was a very good move, in fact, by Shaq, King h8. All right, let's continue our look around the stage. And we have the women's #1 player, Hu Yifan, against Mickey Adams. Hu Yifan had a great first half, and I thought she was doing a fantastic job. Things seemed to unravel after one game in particular that Hu Yifan didn't recover from, and this was her game against Fabiano Caruana. In fact, that game ended in a draw. Hu Yifan, however, had an opportunity to win that game, and had she won that game, she would have gone to a very nice plus score in this very strong field of players. Somehow, after that game, things have not gone her way, and she finds herself tied for the bottom place with Mickey Adams. Let's take it from the top. E4, E5, and a Berlin defense by Mickey. And now we have the Berlin ending. Oh fun, oh joy. H5. All of these moves have been played so many times, and well, it's still a theoretical position. What can I possibly tell you about the Berlin defense that we don't know after the hundreds, if not thousands, of games that have been played between the top players thus far? Pick your poison. Do you prefer white and the better structure, or do you prefer black and the possibility of utilizing the two bishops. Your choice. Let's continue our march. David Navarra, who has brought us so much excitement to this 2016 event. I mean, every game that David has played in this tournament deserves close scrutiny as, well, he's really been a great player and brought the excitement to this event. Probably, I'm thinking of maybe a third, at least a third of all of the great games played in this year's Wijk aan Zee 2016 belong to David Navarra. Whether he's winning or losing, he's definitely making the game exciting for the spectators. Today he plays against the Russian champion Evgeny Tomashevsky. David opened d4, and another Queen's Indian. Bishop a6, Queen a4. This move, Queen a4, defending the pawn on c4, as well as, well, not shutting down, but trying to prevent the counter d7, d5, was really popularized by Predrag Nikolic. Predrag, this has been his favorite system against the Queen's Indian defense. And so for those of you who would like to study and learn the subtleties of this opening by white, and I'm not sure what Queen a4, the name of that opening, is called, you couldn't do badly by studying the games of Predrag Nikolic. The drawback of the move Queen a4 is that the d4 pawn is actually a little bit weak, and normally speaking, black counters very quickly with the move c5, as we see in this game, because with the queen no longer on d1, the recapture queen takes d4 is not on the cards. d4 takes c5, b takes c5. Okay. Different strokes for different folks. Lots of players would prefer to develop their pieces. Bishop takes c5, and thanking white for helping black develop. Castles next, and coming d7, d5. Well, black is trying to say with the move b takes c5 is, well, I like a clump of pawns in the center. c5, the pawn will go to d6, c5, d6, e6, queen will go to b6. Amongst their games, they've actually only played two classical games. The first was 15 years ago in 2001 in Pardubice Open. Both players were only 24-50. And David Navarra won. That game, pardon me, was a draw, and David Navarra won in 2015. So a long time between their games with one another, but David has an edge coming into the game. Castles, bishop e7, knight c3. I also seem to remember seeing lots and lots of games of Peter Leko, where Peter Leko as black embraced black's position. d7, d6, rook b1. Well, practice has shown that after moves like rook d2, trying to target this pawn on d6 very, very quickly, that black is actually pretty able to shore up his pawns with the move knight e8. Not the only move, of course. And it's very difficult for white to get additional pressure against black's structure. So David takes a different approach. He played the move rook b1 with the straightforward idea of b4, hoping to embarrass these pieces on b7 and b6. Knight b8 to d7. Evgeny ignored the threat. Well, it would be very nice for white, by the way, if white could induce the move a5 to stop b4, because in many games we've seen this plan of queen b5, where thanks to the fact that black has committed his pawn to the a5 square, white can utilize the b5 square very well, and the move a5 gets shot down. My first impression, however, is I would think that black would take along the move bishop c6, just attacking the queen and making it that much more awkward for white to get in the move b4. That was not Evgeny's choice. He just simply ignored the move b4 and said go for it, which David did. And now rook fb8. This is what Jan Hein Donner would call modern chess, bringing your rooks to a8 and b8. I mean to say it, he meant it in a derogatory way, but also in a way where he kind of admired the ideas of rook b8 without necessarily understanding them. It's sort of like, interesting move, stupid, but interesting. Okay, rook fb8, basically black says, fine, I've got my pieces developed, you've got your pieces developed. If you do play the move takes on c5, well, queen takes c5, and you may regret that you've made your pawn structure isolated. You've isolated this pawn on c4, and black isn't particularly unhappy about that. So rook fb8, and David Navarra is thinking, how is he planning on following up to his idea of b4? If he plays some move like a3, I can imagine that black is kind of happy that white has just now played b4 and a3, and I don't know, some move like h6. Doesn't seem particularly impressive to me what white has achieved. And probably it's a little bit of an overreach to play a move like knight b5, hoping you're going to smash this d6 pawn. Let me do it in a different way, actually. Because after knight b5, amongst other moves, move e5 could be kind of a showstopper for white's active play. Again, don't forget there's moves like bishop c6, even a5 in a position like this, and white could easily overstep himself. It seems that Tomaszewski's decision not to stop b4 has worked out quite well for black. All right, let's continue our look around stage before we get ready to take our first break, and we'll go back to the game. Ooh, Fabiana Caruana, Luke Van Welly. Well, very, very sharp stuff, and I've seen these types of positions on a number of occasions. It seems to me that the player I've most connect with these positions of Boris Gelfand and Veselin Topalov. Queen a5, attacking the knight on a4. So white is induced to play the move b2, b3, which Fabi did. Bishop e7. Okay. That's either a very good waiting move, and very cool waiting move at that, or it's just wrong. And it's really that definitive. I always felt that black was more or less required, it was imperative that black get in the move d6, d5 very, very quickly. Else when white prepares the advance g4, g5, it comes like a huge rock. Think of it in this way. With the pawns on f7 and e6, that is the heart, the foundation of black's position. If white's pawn ever goes from g4 to the g6 square, black's entire structure is completely undermined and it gets crushed. It's that simple. So bishop e7, it may be theory. My first impression after rook h3 is Luke is facing g5, g6, which is a devastating way of play. Again, probably this is all theory. I'm going to say not probably, but most certainly it's all theory. But it requires great understanding, great preparation, and good handling. For the moment, Luke has to come up with, the theoretically prescribed medicine here, because g4, g5 is a big, big threat. Let's go to the game of Magnus Carlsen, our tournament leader, and Wesley So. I'm certainly hoping that this will be the game of the round, although things to see do appear to be quite tame as we return to this game. We left it at these parts. Bishop takes the rook b1. Wow. Okay, I was told that there was like 50 games in the database. I don't know if this move rook b1 is well known or not. Makes a strange impression, doesn't it, when you see it for the first time? You kind of expect that white would want to bring his pieces out ASAP, bishop f4, rook d2, rook d1, and get along with quick development. Rook b1. Well, all I can say is that white could play a3, but after knight c2, black is picking up a tempo against the rook. So the move a3, the move rook b1 is preparing for a3, driving the knight to c2, where it could get trapped, easily trapped, after rook d2. I'm told that the move rook b1 has been played once before by Grandmaster Pishin. Pishin, as you may very well know, was a coach of Anatoly Karpov and knew his openings inside and out. So arguably a very deep idea by Vladimir Pishin. Rook b1, Wesley So played it. Rook d8, logical. Rook takes d8, king takes d8, and here we have it. Now I'm not so sure I understand white's play. If white plays a3 here, the knight comes to c2, and there's simply no pieces to attack it. One day the knight is going to make a reappearance on the d4 square. That's not the end of the variation, of course. Possibly b4. This is just a strange game. I don't think I have the zen of it myself. You just don't see knight like that on c2. But if white can arrange his pieces in such a way that he gets to pick up lots of tempi, Magnus could be in trouble. Besides a3, is there another move? You'd almost love to play the illegal move rook d1 here, followed by a3, but you got to get the bishop out of the way first. Sorry, guys, I'm not sure I understand what's going on in this position. Or let me rephrase that. I'm certain I don't understand what's going on in the position. It's a confused one. All right. Well, this is your host, Chess Grandmaster Yasser, Seirawan, thanking you for joining me for this round 12, the penultimate round of Wijk aan Zee. Tomorrow we wrap up the tournament. We'll be taking our first break, come back in about 10-15 minutes. We'll probably have Jan van der Mortel joining me if we can't take advantage of some other very special guests who are visiting for the final weekend. So we'll see you back shortly.
chess tournament. Be part of it.
Good afternoon, chess fans, and welcome again to our live coverage of the 2016 Tata Steel Chess Tournament. Your host, Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan, along with Jan van der Mordel.
Hello, Yasser.
Welcome aboard again.
Thank you for having me back.
A game that has actually just kind of got me confused.
Yes.
Has to be the one between Wesley So and Magnus Carlsen.
You're wondering what on earth
is going
Wesley
on.
wants to achieve.
Something of that nature. I don't know if you are aware that this exact position has occurred about 50 times in Grandmaster play, and only once has the move Rook B1 appeared. It's an idea of Vladimir Epeshin, who was a Grandmaster who assisted Anatoly Karpov and is very well versed in his openings. I respect Vladimir's knowledge. Having said that, I really don't understand the move Rook B1 one bit, you know. And we have seen the move Rook D8,
That's a
very logical move.
Yes.
A nice trade. A3, forcing the knight to this wonderful square D3.
Well, I
Bishop.
see why the rook is on B1. Otherwise, the pawn would be hanging.
That is true. But after Bishop E3, with the threat of Rook D1, as we highlighted while we were on
King
break.
sidesteps the file.
And, you know, I always thought that it was a very bad idea to force your opponent to put his knight deeply into your camp if you can't get rid of it.
Well,
And how is
if
he
you
gonna
get to
get-
play B4 and F4 in one move,
Yes. So
then the knight has no more squares. So
right, B4, F4, it's nicely trapped. Still not sure how you're going to win it and drive it back.
you need to attack it with more than one piece, most likely.
But you can't make two moves in a row, and from Black's point of view, Black has very simple idea of Rook D8,
Yes, Bishop
another
F6.
F6, or Bishop C5, what you mentioned as we were coming on.
It seems like Black's position is very easy to play.
Yeah, and again, I'm just a little bit confused as to what it was specifically about this position that Wesley has found so attractive. Do you see, theoretically speaking, are they still in theory, or you're not sure?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Me neither.
If I would have to guess, I don't think so.
You think that this is something new?
Yes.
Yeah.
But what could Wesley want? That's a whole different question.
Right. Well, we know what he would like, whether he achieves anything with the move B4. Let us say Bishop F6 looks like a reasonable move,
attack the
and
knight.
I don't really want to move the knight away. I mean, of course, we understand on a good day we have such ideas.
But
If
then
I play a move like Rook B3 here,
you're still not really threatening to play knight e5.
no, I'm not. I imagine Rook D8, yeah?
Yes, or maybe even something like knight e5 to look at c4.
Knight E5 looking at C4, also very compelling idea. The problem I had with Wesley's play is if you play a move like F4, trapping the knight, so that on a good day you imagine that the knight is stuck. This is...
Not quite stuck.
no, this is a really unpleasant move.
It's on the
because
attack.
It's not only... Yes, exactly. It's...
And
it's by
c2,
no
it
means...
just
Yeah.
looks awful for white.
Right, so I don't see how A3 and B4 brings
Anything. really.
anything, which kind of leaves me stuck
He
with this
played
move.
f4. That's the move he played.
He did.
Yes.
Good for him, because basically
the
that
only
was the
move.
move that I was coming to. And I'm thinking that after F4, I would just play a reasonable move.
Okay, yes.
Then I'm thinking that this E5, okay, now we can imagine on a good day,
The king coming into the middle,
and
you
you
have more
just have
space,
space,
and the knight on d3 might actually be not so happy anymore.
arguably, but I've always felt, again, you know, very easy play for black. His pieces aren't bad. King on c7, rook on d8. Again, this knight on d3 is either a tower of strength or a potentially misplaced piece. At the moment, it just feels like black should be more than happy with the outcome. Again, I can't imagine that black is in a bad shape or even stands worse, for example,
Yeah.
after f6.
Agreed.
I am told that up to this moment, this is all theoretical, and that the move a2, a3 is the new move. I suppose, if I had forced to guess, I can imagine actually bishop f1 or bishop f4 as having been played in the past. But a3 apparently is the new move. We do have this situation on the board, f4 Magnus to play. And we know this is actually, extraordinarily enough, it's a pretty compelling game in the tournament, because Magnus is a point ahead of the field. He's just ready to, cement his tournament, his 26th tournament win at the elite level, by the way. And yet, in a funny way, if Wesley could get a result here, the final round features Magnus and Dingler-in. And if Dingler-in could also get a result, they would actually be playing for first.
So Magnus wouldn't mind a draw. Is probably. I mean, he likes to win every game.
Of course.
But just from the tournament perspective, a draw would serve him fine.
Yes, kind of cement his stamp.
Yes.
Stamp on the tournament. So, f4. Do you like the move rook d8, by the way?
Well, it looks very logical.
It does. And maybe there's... Since I'm kind of... Well, I really don't know what else to play beside e5. The only other move that comes to mind is king f1, king e2. Well, let's see e5 once more. e5...
Do you want to play f6?
I do. I thought that bishop g2, king g2, you're kind of helping.
Yeah, no.
That's being cooperative, yeah? Bishop c5, something to be said for that that move as well. The rook on d8 is simply excellent, is a well-placed rook. So, okay, what can I tell you? This game, I think Magnus is simply doing fine.
Let's go to the game between Ding and Elyanov.
Yes.
Where did you leave it?
I left it after the move knight e1, which I found a little wild.
Wild?
Yeah, knight e1.
Knight e1 retreating wild.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I was looking at this move c5.
Mm-hmm.
After all, since you moved the knight away from the center,
why not
let me
open the
break.
center?
And I was looking at captures.
Okay.
Captures. All very forcing. d6 box, if you will. Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, knight takes. And I thought that, well, black should be more or less satisfied with the outcome of the opening. The knight looks good.
Then I comes to e4.
There are squares, and black's pieces are rather free.
Again, not a very difficult position to play for black.
No. That wasn't what happened, though. Apparently, the move knight e1 induced d5 takes c4, surrendering the center.
Yes, he recaptures.
b5, a totally different approach by Pavel. And I must say, by the way, Pavel has a lot of experience on both sides of these types of position. Queen b3, queen b6. Well, nice square for the queen, I must say, first of all.
You might take that pawn on a good day.
Yeah, and this bishop on b7 is nicely protected.
So you have c5 as an option.
Precisely. Bishop g5. The problem bishop, this dark square bishop for white. White doesn't really have
There's
the
not
greatest
like an
squares.
ideal square for that bishop.
That's right. So bishop g5. And, well, white gets rid of it. e2, e3. Well, I can see like a link in a chain of events. I can see that white's knight coming to the d3 square starts to look favorably placed.
Yes, if a knight ever lands on c5, black
Life
is
is
in
good.
big trouble.
Life is good. Let's see how, and we're up to date. Wow.
Yes,
Pavel
I
has
know
played it
this.
very slowly after e3. Well, my understanding of the position is if black doesn't get in this move c6, c5, he suffers greatly. And it's really that simple. There's
Yes,
nothing
so,
else to
uh,
say about the position.
What move is he looking at now?
Well, exactly. If you play, for argument's sake,
Yeah,
if you play c5
at once, you have to justify dropping the b pawn.
yeah, exactly. And that might be hard to do, actually.
Looks like a healthy pawn.
A healthy pawn. So, you would play, black would
A6.
naturally play a6 in preparation of c5, but now check this out. Your queen is no longer
So you want to go to
protected.
knight a4.
Well, I'm saying that knight a4, and again, c5 is tactically refuted by knight a4, and the b5 pawn is pinned to the queen. So it's not so easy to get in this freeing break c5.
It's looking more and more difficult.
Exactly. If black prepares with knight d7, okay, in order to prepare that, then the move knight e4 as well as knight a4 to c5.
But knight
And
a4,
then-
the queen is protected now.
Now the queen's protected, so knight e4 is required. Okay.
And what happens if you, let's see, we count the number of defenders.
Yeah,
on
yes,
c5.
exactly. It's like
Can you play c5 here?
that's the question. Can you? I have
Otherwise,
a feeling,
something lands on c5.
and that will be unpleasant. Okay, I have a feeling that either there's a great mass of trades and
Equality?
equality, or there's some nasty in-between move that, as an
You're eyeing
example,
d7.
as an example of a nasty in-between move. So you have to take here on g2,
And then you want to play knight d7 and see what's what.
and I don't think this bishop checkmates me.
No, but still a pretty good bishop.
Yes, but so you probably want to keep some pieces in the position
Yes, if you would play bishop h3, you would allow knight f4,
with the tempo.
protecting and attacking the bishop.
That's right. So, okay, so knight f4. Here I have a feeling that black is hoping for an equality.
It doesn't look like a position that will be equal very soon.
Not for a long while, for sure.
Yes, and now he might.
Knight e1 is actually a very
It's a very
good move.
solid move. And having an extra rook in this position
With
means
the open
something.
yeah,
yes.
it's very meaningful when the central files
If
are open, of course.
Somehow the position would be closed, that bishop could be very, very strong.
Yeah.
But now the rooks will be very strong.
Exactly.
I mean,
So,
if he's thinking about, and he just
he did play
make a move,
he was probably dissatisfied with the alternatives, and he's tossed a pawn to the wind. c5.
Queen
So-
takes b5 was your
Yeah.
suggestion.
Well, that's because I'm a pawn grabber.
There you go.
And there you go. I mean, my favorite appetizer, pawns.
So what's Black's idea?
I have no idea. I can't imagine this being even close to compensation. Bishop takes g2. If you have a better suggestion.
Well, if you want to keep a pair of bishops as some sort of a token as compensation, you would play bishop a6 or something like that.
Bishop
But
a6.
that looks a bit odd,
Truly,
because the bishop with g2 is not a bad piece.
not a bad piece.
And you might even play bishop f1 in a good day.
Yes, I'm actually thinking that, well, you know, in such positions where you have a Catalan bishop, your desire is to plant a knight on c6 and go to sleep. And I'm thinking that
You're seeing that in the foreseeable future.
in the immediate future,
Yes.
not to mention a d6, d4, d5, but you're right. If Pavel, you know, is aiming for some compensation, but this is ridiculous. I can't imagine
Well,
that
you
this
said
is
it. It's,
something strange.
are we maybe just missing something obvious? Is that possible?
Yes.
Well, of course, it's always possible.
It
There's
always
a lot of
possible.
things.
Obvious things. But again, if I were to look at bishop takes g2,
You have options.
I just would think that as white, I'm not going to say it's technically won,
but
but
you're-
it feels like it should be technically
You sort
won.
of want to say it anyway.
I do. I mean, in the hands of
Ding Liren.
the Ding Liren, Magnus Carlsen, and Fabiano, I would be shocked if they didn't win this
Yes, and I
7
think
out of 10 games. I mean, it's
Ding is a player who, regardless, feels he is nearly unbeatable in an endgame to begin with.
he's very confident.
Yeah.
He's a very, very confident player, and that win that he had against Sergei Karyakin, that was a very impressive win by China's #1 player. So C5, well, I mean, I think Pavel's going to have a tough afternoon ahead of him.
Yes. Shall we take a look at Van Wely Caruana?
Yes. And what's your take of Luke's play in this tournament? It's been entertaining.
Yes, one
we
of the
have to use that
together
word.
with David Navarra, in the way they
Wow,
have really shown some good stuff.
truly.
Incidentally, the last time Luke played this Bishop E7 move, I was actually
This is
sitting.
all theoretical.
Yes, I was sitting next to him.
Really?
Yes, and I was even. Well, I didn't talk to him, but I was actually the arbiter because
kidding.
the game was being played on the internet.
Okay.
It was KasparovChess.com.
Okay.
And it was their. Well, it was not quite inaugural, but it was.
One of their first online events that they were holding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was designated arbiter for the Dutch players.
Very good.
So I was sitting next to Luke when he
Yeah.
played this game against
No.
Garry Kasparov.
No computer assistant or
He
anything.
had
of that
no assistance whatsoever.
I'll take your word for
Yes,
it. Yeah.
I swear.
Okay.
So it's sort of interesting to see this move back again so many years later.
What year was that? Do you recall?
2000.
Wow.
Year
15,
2000.
16 years ago.
Yes.
And I remember when Kasparov .com or KasparovChess.com was coming online, and it was amazing. In those moments of time, we had an Inside Chess magazine. It's a magazine that we published in the United States to try to inform players on a bi-weekly basis. And there was an incredible, very, very, very strong tournament, like really one of the elite Category 20 tournaments in Palma de Mallorca in Spain, the Canary Islands. And Gary played this double round robin with Anand and Topalov and Karpov and all of the top mucky mucks, and played an extraordinary game with Vesel and Topalov. I came in to the office and I said, "Hey guys, what's up?" And my editor, Mike Frenette, said, "Yaz, you got to see this." So we had the Oracle, which was a copier, like this massive, massive copier that spit out all of the stuff. 24 pages of analysis in less than 24 hours came on the Kasparov site with annotations by Garry Kasparov. And I was saying, my God, the internet is going to kill chess magazines.
It was a scary moment for
It
me.
was a frightening.
And
The handwriting was on the wall that chess magazines were not going to survive this very disruptive technology.
And probably your thoughts have come somewhat true.
Oh,
I mean,
without
there's still a
question.
lot of chess magazines, but
Yes.
the internet has been the main source of information now for many years.
Absolutely. I thought the move bishop e7 was slow, and that essentially this move g4, g5, g6 is a killer threat in the position. And I had it in my mind that black was supposed to play d5 or knight e5, and that my first impression was the move bishop e7 was too slow. You're mentioning that Luke has a
Yeah, he has
has
some
played
history.
it before, and so
Only
he-
once, and
Right.
he's played the position, I believe, about 8 times or so.
Tournament play.
And knight c5, I think, is one of the main moves there.
Okay.
But obviously, he wanted to maybe surprise Fabiano a little bit.
All right. Let's see if he succeeded. Rook h3.
This is a new move in the game. Tapani Samalvul, who I think is an expert in this line for black, had faced king b1 in this position. and the game continued with knight c5 thereafter. And
So king b1 just simply protecting pawn a2. And also I have it in my mind that a3.
yes,
A2,
after knight
A2,
c5,
yeah.
a3 is the main move.
Okay. So rook h3, knight c5,
Yes,
a3.
the idea of rook h3, I believe, is to play simply threaten g5.
Yes.
Because then the rook is protected.
Exactly.
And if the bishop comes on h3, then
it's over.
you're pretty much ready to drop a bomb on e6.
Right. Either in conjunction with g5, g6, or just
even
the bomb.
without. Yes.
Yeah, and it's devastating.
So black needs to do something now.
Very, very, very quickly. Knight c5. No bombs were dropped with g5. I assume
There's probably
There
some complications on the king's
on
queen
the
side.
queen side. So fine. Fabi played a3. Rook c8. Took us. Check. Takes. King b2. Sidestepping. Queen takes b3 threats.
I just saw them make some moves.
And now we see the move d5.
Okay.
d5. Well, I'm still thinking all of this is theory. I appreciate that king b1 was a line of Garry Kasparov, but it still feels to me like this is really the play, if you will, has
Yes.
been rather straightforward.
These ideas have been seen many times before.
Right,
And one of the only differences that bishop e7 and rook h3 have been
included.
included.
Well, rook h3 is a useful move, I can imagine. From my
Yes, the
perspective.
third rank might be useful in defense.
Yeah, protecting f3
And I assume g5 you still want to play if possible.
okay.
But black has his ideas as well.
The counter shot bishop b4 is in the air. So shall we play bishop c5?
And looks like a logical move. I mean,
Okay. Bishop c5, and I'm assuming black is not eager to allow takes. Bishop takes e7, and the king could end up trapped very unhappily in the middle of the board.
this doesn't look very
Yeah,
appetizing. g5 again, yes.
It's a kind of a suicide attempt for black. So, okay, so bishop, in case of bishop c5, how about the old exchange sacrifice, right?
Well, that's my first thought.
Yes. Doing line, knight takes c5, thump, and get out of dodge.
Sure. And so now you try g5 anyway.
Ooh.
Probably rook b8 is going to happen, huh?
I was playing for rook a1 as a kind of a prelim move, you know, like just to get my king out of dodge and then play. So rook a1, queen is going to go back to a good square.
Maybe with the, well, you don't have to
C6.
check. Okay, yeah, c6.
c6. So no checks on b5 and g5. Well, very uncompromising position. My first impression is you gotta like white. He has material ahead, and
There's an attack.
there's an attack. Again, I assume. I mean, for a player like Luke, who's played the Night Orf most of his career,
Yes.
he really has studied these positions.
He knows them in and out.
Inside and out.
He knows exactly which squares he can get checkmated on.
Mhm.
And he knows how he can avoid those.
Checkmates.
But, yes, but sometimes, of course, it happens anyway. So, if you, in case of g5 in that line,
sorry.
well, actually, we don't have to really look at it yet.
You mean in the final position?
Yeah, he probably something like knight h5 with the idea to play gh g6. Is that a?
Sure, but then, well, first of all, gift me the pawn.
Mm-hmm.
G6, what you mentioned, gift me this pawn.
And then you're going to put a queen on d4.
Oh,
If I
that
take it back.
Yes, if you take it back with the pawn. I was thinking you were going to go
Queen
queen
c5, yes.
but I was not convinced.
No.
There's too many.
All of white, well, almost all of white's pieces are actually actively defending as well.
Yes,
If the pawn on f3 is gone, then the rook has a
clear sailing along
Yes.
the third rank
At that
just
point,
to cover.
black would be losing the game on every single part of the board.
Right. how do we say? Worse on the queen side, worse on the king side, and poorly placed in the center. Yeah. So okay, we don't expect any of that. But d5, beside bishop c5 or knight c5, or I don't think that white can slow play the position after c3, which would actually be very desirable on a good day, because again, g5. The problem, as I saw it, is
Knight d5.
now
And c3 becomes a big target.
a juicy target. But
Also, there might be some knight b4.
and issues. It's still, well, all of these. The knight is just too damn sharp.
Yes, you still need to calculate everything.
Everything.
But
I mean,
this feels good for black. In a
yeah,
way.
yeah. My first impression is it's too positionally nice
Yes.
and too slow. And
So-
that was why we were looking at bishop c5 or knight c5 as a way of dealing with the position.
I guess if you want to bail out, maybe rook a1 might be a move.
Pardon me. At which moment? At this
in
moment?
this moment.
Rook a1 and give up the b4 pawn?
Well, maybe you can get something back on a6 at a given moment. It doesn't feel very...
Well,
It doesn't feel like black is worried about it at all.
possibly. Just a second. Just to continue your suggestion,
Mm-hmm.
you got to get rid of that knight.
Yeah,
The knight
otherwise
on
if the
a-
knight lands in the center,
on
it is a
d5
disaster.
or e4, it's painful. Well, if we're not blundering something, should we trade queens?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, and now it's a pause because I'm not sure how I should recapture. Well,
Bishop looks more unnatural in a
okay.
way.
HG,
And you have to take,
HG.
and there's a trade, and a trade.
and now the knight has to finally be forced back. But here you don't have enough firewood to
Actually,
really...
you might even be able to sacrifice that knight.
Very common.
That's a lot of...
That's a lot of pawns.
Yes, from my dragon days, I remember...
Living for such moments.
yes. I wouldn't even want to look at it as white.
Yeah, that's a real massive clump of pawns. No, I don't think that this is anything that